Good morning, you're watching the News Hour. It's just gone 6 o'clock.
Yes, also this morning we'll ask why Scotland can afford to provide public services that England can't.
We'll meet the woman whose remarkable drop from a size 24 to a size 12 was captured on camera by her boyfriend at each stage.
And Carla has been getting to know music legends, the Eagles. You can hear her chat with them in about 20 minutes' time. Don't forget, you can let us know your thoughts on any of the things we're talking about this morning. Just email us at usual place, gm.tv.
But first, let's get the weather from Claire.
Hello, good morning. We're prepared to be dazzled by sunshine this morning. Take a look at this. Away from the far north and west of Scotland, most of us today seeing blue sky and unbroken sunshine this afternoon. It's going to help temperatures up to probably around 15 degrees Celsius if you're very lucky. Make the most of it. It's turning cloudier in the south and windier over the next few days. I'll give you more details in around 25 minutes. Cordelia.
Thanks, Claire. Well, our top story this morning. Tragedy has struck at a popular holiday resort in the Algarve last night as 3 British holidaymakers and a German tourist drowned. They were trying to rescue children who'd got into difficulties while swimming. 3 more British people are being treated in hospital near the Sound of Sagres.
This is the picturesque but perilous stretch of coastline where the holidaymakers were swept to their deaths, trying to save a group of children. Among them, the parents of a young brother and sister who are now being comforted. The beach itself is located at Sagres in southwest Portugal and is a popular spot with surfers for its strong currents. It's believed the families were on a half-term break, staying at a nearby golf resort. It's understood the children of the couple are receiving counselling now until relatives arrive. A statement released said everyone at the Vigia Group is deeply saddened by this terrible tragedy. We are, of course, doing all we can to help the children and families of those who have been lost.
And that report from Miranda Shunker there.
OK, let's catch up on the rest of the news. Here's Priya.
Thanks, John. Police in Mallorca are searching for the mother of a 7-year-old girl who's currently fighting for her life after falling from a hotel balcony. Detectives say the woman hasn't been seen since her daughter was found seriously injured. Kate Evans reports.
The girl fell 30 feet from the 5th floor of this hotel, landing on concrete below. She was rushed to hospital where her father is by her bedside, but her mother has apparently disappeared. The family was staying in the resort of Cala de Mallorca in the east of the island. It's thought that they had 2 rooms at the hotel, one shared by the girl and her mother, the other by her father and 2 brothers. Police have launched a major search operation to try to find the girl's mother.
They've had jeeps out, 4x4s, civil protection combing the beaches. They've had the national police have been up in a helicopter combing the coastline as well. I mean, there's some cliffs nearby. The impression I get is more than anything else, they're concerned for her well-being, I think, at this stage.
Doctors treating the injured girl say she remains in a critical condition.
Wildfires burning out of control across California have forced the evacuation of 250,000 people. Thousands of homes are at risk as fierce winds help spread the fires. More Carla Romano is in Malibu. Morning, Carla. What's the latest there?
Morning to you. Well, people here in Malibu are calling it an apocalypse, and I can tell you they are not the only ones. 20 wildfires sweeping uncontrollably across 7 counties here in Southern California. The big problem, the heat, and it's incredibly dry. But not only that, the fact is that it's just there's not enough resources for people to enough firefighters to get around. They are incredibly stretched. Some of these fires are only 10% contained. Some, I can tell you, are 0% contained, and it's just going to get worse. One of the worst affected areas has got to be San Diego County. We know that 275,000 people have been evacuated there. 500 homes destroyed and about 100 businesses. So it's pretty dire. Here in Malibu, this is what they call billionaires' playground here. This is where the rich and famous, this is where they live, this is where they come to play. It resembles more like a disaster zone right now. Now we know that the fire is fast approaching Courtney Cox's house, remember her from Friends, and not only her, her friend and co-star Jennifer Aniston, just a little bit up the coast We also know that Cher's house is almost affected, Sting and Mel Gibson, and I've just heard that Mel Gibson has now evacuated, as has Kelsey Grammer, who plays Frasier and Friends. Big problem here, the winds. They're called the Santa Ana winds. The minute one fire starts, the embers start flying and another one starts. The firefighters cannot get everywhere, and that's why it is now hardly contained, and it's just going to get worse.
Scary stuff. Thanks, Carla. Badgers should be killed to stop tuberculosis spreading among cattle, according to the government's chief scientist. Sir David King raised the suggestion despite huge public opposition to the idea and warnings about the high cost and low benefits of culling. Well, Jackie Kabler is at the Secret World Animal Sanctuary in Somerset. Jackie, why are badgers such a problem?
Good morning, Prue. Well, let me just show you one first. If you take a look in there, that is one of the rescue badgers here at Secret World, and he is, of course, TB-free. But bovine TB kills thousands of cattle a year, and while other animals, including deer, are also carriers, it is well accepted that badgers are the biggest reservoir of TB in the wild. Now, there have been arguments for years about the best way to deal with it, and earlier this year, an independent scientific group told the government that culling was not the way to go. They said it was too expensive, that it actually sometimes made badgers spread out more and caused even higher rates of infection. But yesterday, Sir David King disagreed, and he said that culling was the way to go, he believed, in order to stamp out TB in cattle, and he said as long as it was done humanely and with conservation in mind, it would be okay. Now, for years, farmers have been asking the government to carry out culling in order to eradicate TB in their cattle, and so they're very pleased with this, no doubt. But other groups, well, animal welfare groups like the RSPCA, say it's simply not the way to go, and that it completely makes a nonsense of the fact that badgers are legally protected species. So it does seem that despite this latest report, the arguments are going to continue.
Jackie, thank you. The police officer who led an inquiry into allegations that political parties gave honours in return for donations will be questioned by MPs today. Assistant Commissioner John Yates will probably be asked why such a costly investigation didn't result in any charges. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair was questioned at the time. Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden has called for insurgents in Iraq to unite and avoid divisions in a new broadcast. The audio tape was played on Al Jazeera yesterday, but has not yet been proved to be authentic. Look at what's on our website this morning. Find out which cities in Britain have the worst debt, why the traditional lunch hour is a thing of the past, and why grandparents clock up billions of miles a year ferrying their grandchildren around. All that and more on our website, gm.tv. It is just coming up to 8 minutes past 6. Now it's back to John.
Thanks very much, Priya. Let's take a look at the morning papers. The McCanns are commanding the front page of two newspapers. That's The Sun, quoting a waiter who said that, alleged that Mrs McCann left the children alone for 3 hours a night. I'm sure the McCanns would have a different version of events. McCanns or a friend must be to blame is a headline in the Daily Express. The Daily Mirror says, along with several other papers, that News at 10 is coming back with Sir Trevor MacDonald, believe it or not. Wait to hear what ITV News have to say about that later in the day. Here comes the judge. This pilot scheme, children as young as 10 being given the power to mete out justice to teenage thugs in a trial that's going on up at Preston in Lancashire. Britain is sickliest nation in Europe, according to reports in the Daily Telegraph. Also picked up this morning by the Independent, which has quotes an NHS advisor proposing a revolutionary cure for all of our ills. And finally, in the Times, a report saying that anyone going to the Olympics will be banned from travelling by car.
Thanks, John. Well, the senior detective who headed the inquiry into whether the government sold cash for honours is going to be questioned by a Commons committee today. Gloria Piero gives us the background.
From here, John Yates spent 16 months investigating whether honours had been offered to wealthy businessmen in exchange for big donations to the Labour Party. Despite the fevered speculation, no charges were ever brought. So these are just some of the questions Assistant Commissioner John Yates may have to answer when he faces MPs today. Why did the investigation take so long? Why were no charges brought? Did he waste £1 million of taxpayers' cash? Did Downing Street obstruct the gathering of evidence? John Yates is expected to mount a robust defence of his investigation when he arrives at the House of Commons later today. But many Labour members of the committee will relish the chance to hit back at a man who they felt dragged their party through the mud and cast a dark shadow over Tony Blair's final year in office.
Well, Jenny Wilcott's a member of the committee that's going to be questioning John Yates later today. Jenny, first of all, what are the big questions that you're going to be asking? What do you want to find out?
Well, I think the main issue is why it cost so much money and took such a long time to do the investigation, when from the evidence that the Crown Prosecution Service gave at the end, it was never going to be possible to bring a prosecution under the law as it is at the moment. And it seems an awful long time, an awful lot of money, if it was very clear from the outset that it was never going to go anywhere, and I think that's a really big question to answer.
So the next question about this law that prevented any criminal prosecutions, convictions being pressed, do you want to see it changed?
Well, that's one of the things that we're looking at on the committee. I think the law as it stands, it was written in 1925, it's very out of date. And it looks as if it would be impossible to bring a prosecution nowadays under that law. But we really do need to tighten up the framework so that people don't think they can get away with corruption nowadays. So one of the things we're looking at is what would need to be changed if we need to bring in new legislation, or if we could tweak other existing laws so that they could be used for this sort of purpose.
And what about these new reports we're hearing about the pressure that was exerted by Downing Street on Scotland Yard, A, not to interview the Prime Minister, and B, we're hearing claims that there was general obstruction of this investigation. Are you going to be asking about that? Is that something interesting for you?
We have to be a little bit careful not to ask too many questions about stuff that is secret or that was done on oath in police stations, because obviously we can't start reopening the entire investigation. That's not the purpose of what we're trying to do. But I think if there are instances where the system as it is at the moment just doesn't work, then we really do need to be looking at that to see what can be done to improve it next time.
And where do you stand on kind of where this leaves our political system? Because, OK, the law wasn't good enough didn't allow us to press any criminal convictions, but the fact remains, if you're a Labour donor, you're 7,000 times more likely to become a peer. People may look at that and think, there's a bit of corruption in this system.
Well, I think the first thing that we should do is get rid of the appointment system to the House of Lords. If we had an entirely elected House of Lords, you would totally get rid of all that patronage side of things, and it would there wouldn't be the opportunity there. There have been a lot of changes made already, so that issues around loans to political parties, the rules have been changed. But I think the one thing that did come out of this is that the House of Lords Appointments Commission did a really good job and actually blocked these people from becoming peers. So it does show that part of the system actually worked, because they are not in the House of Lords now, and there have been investigations instead.
OK, thank you. We'll look forward to hearing what's said later on today.
Time now 30 minutes past 6. A question for you. Could it be time for the English to make a run for the border? Free prescriptions are the latest benefit the Scots are to get, so incidentally do the Welsh, whilst most people in England and Northern Ireland have to pay, of course. And that isn't the only handout Scots enjoy, suggesting life north of the border is a lot easier than in other parts of the country. Sue Jamieson has been looking at the growing divide.
Do you pay for prescription charges? How about tuition fees? Do you pay for eye tests and dental checks? If you're elderly, do you pay for your care home costs or to have central heating installed? Do you pay to travel on the buses? Well, if you answered yes to all those questions, then I know where you live. And it's here, south of the border, where you're governed by the people who work in this building. But around 400 miles north, if this is your local parliament, your answers could be quite different, making you potentially much better off. In Scotland, prescription charges will be phased out from April. There's a pilot scheme to give all primary school children free school meals, and that's in addition to free tuition fees, eye checks and help for the elderly. Is that fair?
Being fair, everyone should pay the same in Scotland or England or Ireland or Wales.
No, I don't think we're being subsidised by the English, I don't.
Care homes as well, when they get older, they get free. We have to pay to go into a care home.
And how many miles are you short of the border?
Half a mile.
In Scotland, spending on health, education and other public services is about £1,500 a person more than in England. It may pay to live north of the border.
Indeed. Well, joining me now is economic forecaster and visiting professor of the University of Derby, David Smith. Good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. The one question everyone in England and to some extent Wales and Northern Ireland will want to know is, if the Scots can have all these things for nothing, why can't we?
Well, first of all, of course, the Scots are living approximately 10 to 12 billion above their means. It's not just that their spending's higher, but they're not paying the commensurate taxes. If you look at the figures, of course, you find Wales likewise, Northern Ireland also. In fact, there are only 3 regions for the United Kingdom which actually carry the rest for the eastern region,
but
South East and London.
The people who are receiving these things free don't care about that. They're just getting a free service. And their government seems to be able to provide it. Why can't the English government provide it?
Well, of course, what you're looking at is some of the flaws in the devolution setup, which people who are opposed to devolution originally pointed out. Of course, what you've also got is Alex Salmond now, who's a populist politician, playing his own game, and the more he irritates taxpayers in the rest of the United Kingdom, the more he gets up Gordon Brown's nose, the better it is for him.
Could Gordon Brown argue with any justification that it's simply not economically viable for the rest of us to have these benefits, given that there are far more people living in England and Northern Ireland than there are in Scotland, for example?
Well, benefits have to be paid for, and if you look at it, there are about 21 million people in the United Kingdom who are basically paying the taxes, which carry over 16.5 million. It's not the first round effect of increased benefits, but if you start pushing up the tax burden, you get to the point where industrial enterprises collapse, jobs go, and you end up with a sort of recession that leads to mass unemployment.
So it would have a ripple effect on the economy as a whole. So effectively we couldn't afford it, or it's not cost effective to do it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in 1997 the tax burden in Britain was 8 to 9 percentage points lower than the European Union. Most of that gap's now been filled. We're now a higher tax economy than Germany, for example. And you're already seeing a competitive loss. I mean, one very good example is Rolls-Royce recently decided to invest in its new testing facility in Germany rather than Derby.
But you can understand the irritation, particularly of like the chap who lives just half a mile over the border in England, at the fact that Scottish people get all these things free, and we are actually subsidising them, despite what the Scottish gentleman said. We are, in England, subsidising them to the tune of £1,500 per head more than anybody else. Or they're getting £1,500 per head more than anybody else in the rest of the United Kingdom in terms of subsidy.
You've got to be a little bit careful. If you talk about the north east of England, of course, they are also subsidy junkies. So it's not Scotland versus the rest. It's very much certain regions of the United Kingdom versus
overall,
the rest.
Yes. Overall, though. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the situation with north east is pretty similar to that in Scotland, in fact, in terms of the expenditure.
You do understand the irritation of people south of the border who see all this happening, bearing in mind what we're pumping into those regions.
Yes, I mean, I have written that when you get that sort of setup in continental Europe, you often get the growth of separatist parties. The Catalans in Spain, for example, are fed up with subsidising the rest of Spain, the Northern League in Italy. And it is a recipe for breaking up the country in the longer term.
Well, let's hope it doesn't do that. But
likewise, I don't see it.
At least air our irritation at it. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. Email us via our usual website address, gm.tv. Right, you're watching the news hour, of course, on GMTV. These are the headlines you're waking up to today. 3 British holidaymakers and a German tourist have drowned trying to rescue children off the coast of the Algarve in Scotland.
Police in Mallorca are searching for the mother of a 7-year-old girl who's fighting for her life after falling from a hotel balcony.
And those wildfires in California have forced the evacuation of 250,000 people as fierce winds spread the fires that now threaten thousands of homes.
It's now 6:18 and up to 500,000 elderly people in the UK are physically and emotionally abused, many of them in care homes, the very places that are designed to help them. Well, today sees the launch of a new helpline aimed at ensuring the concerns of family and friends are acted upon without fear of reprisal. Initially, this is going to be a pilot scheme, but it could go nationwide. Well, in a moment we'll be talking to Marilyn Hartley. There she is. Marilyn's mother, Lily, suffered from malnutrition while she was in a nursing home. This is her at the beginning of her stay, smiling nicely, and this is Lily after 6 months with the care home when she was finally admitted to hospital with suspected deep vein thrombosis, and it was only then that staff discovered she was actually malnourished. Well, we're joined right now from Leeds by Marilyn. Marilyn, I mean, really, those pictures tell their own story. But tell us, first of all, how was your mum, in your view, before she went into the home?
Mum was suffering from dementia, but she could walk aided by 2 people. I'm not sure which photograph you've shown. If there was the one with Mum looking very, very thin, that was after a hospital stay. So she was so ill in hospital that she actually declined and lost more weight in hospital. So what did you see? She was badly...
I'm ever so sorry, Marilyn. I was just going to ask you, what did you see happen to her in the home? When did you notice that something was up?
After a couple of weeks, we realised that Mum didn't look quite herself. We would go and visit her, and she would be dressed in other people's clothes, and she would look unkept. And she started to lose weight, and we asked the question of, you know, that Mum is losing weight, is she not eating well? And we were told that that's what we should expect when someone has dementia.
Okay, and when did you feel able to complain to the care home when you finally realised something was up? I'm asking really whether this new helpline would have helped you in your position. We weren't aware of anyone that we could complain to. When your relative goes and lives in a home, at the beginning you're very unsure of everything. You don't know the complaints procedure. I don't think the home had one at that time, and we asked questions of matron. We had no idea of anyone to complain to at all. It was only when Mum was admitted to hospital that the social worker at the hospital suggested we got in touch with the Commission for Social Care Inspection, which we did, and they upheld 17 of our complaints. And of course, I bet you just don't expect the care home that you're probably paying to look after your dear old mum to be actually harming her. Well, Gary Fitzgerald is the Chief Executive of Action on Elder Abuse, and he joins us now right here. Gary, you've heard what Marilyn just said. I think it's fairly exemplary of the problem. How will this helpline help people in her position?
I think it's important to make a number of distinctions about care homes, and I'd put them into two categories. Those, and I think Marilyn experienced that, where very clearly there were problems with that care home. Their contribution, their attitude towards abuse was questionable, to say the least. But there are many, many care homes that are trying to do their best. And the problem for them is that, at times, care workers in the care homes get it wrong. If we can catch that situation soon enough and quick enough, we can solve the problem. Difficulty is, many old people are frightened of complaining or don't know how to complain. Relatives can be frightened of complaining as well, and so can care workers for lots of reasons. What this helpline does is give them access to an independent charity that has an agreement with the care providers. So if they ring us, we can raise that with the care provider, and there are conditions for them to respond to us, the time frames, what they're going to do about it, and we can pursue it if something goes wrong.
Can we just talk about the action that's going to be taken after a complaint's made? Because we've got to make sure this isn't just a talking shop.
Exactly.
You know? So what's the time frame on that, and how do we make sure things happen?
Well, there are a number of responses that we've agreed with the care providers. If something is very, very serious, and I'm thinking in terms of the illness of somebody, they've deteriorated rapidly, we can inform the police, we can go to the regulators, we can raise it with Essex County Council, who've got an adult protection system. If it's something more minor, and a lot of what takes place and going wrong in care homes is about poor practice. It's things that if you catch them quick enough, stop becoming abuse. We can raise that directly with the care providers themselves, and there are time frames for them to respond, a matter of weeks, and they have to tell us what they've done about it. If we're not happy with what they've done about it, as an independent charity, we will pursue that further.
Thank you very much, Gary. And also thank you to Marilyn Hartley, and let's just hope her mum's making a good recovery. Yeah?
Indeed. OK, time now 23 minutes past 6. Now, people of a certain age, I mean by that my generation, won't need any help in identifying the band who recorded this classic.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Yes, I know the words. That was, of course, the Eagles, the soft rock, folk influence superstars of the 1970s who still pack stadia wherever they play. Remarkable, bearing in mind they haven't recorded a full album for nearly 30 years. But now a new one is on the way, and Carla Romano caught up with them.
Like a bluebird with his heart removed, lonely as a tree.
Lovely to see you again, gentlemen. I have to say a massive, big congratulations on the album. Are you relieved that that's done and dusted, pretty much?
It took us years, as a matter of fact. We won't go into all that, but once we got going, the songs really started to flow, and things started to come together.
The one thing that struck me when I was listening to it is that it is so quintessentially the Eagles.
Well, that's just the way it came out. I guess we can't help being us.
We're now more ourselves than we've ever been, and a couple of people have said this is the best album we've ever made, so I hope everybody thinks so. We didn't feel the pressure that you feel when you're signed to a major record label. I think, again, the pressure mostly was on the songwriting part. You know, are these songs, is this song good enough? Is that song good enough?
How do you maintain that dynamic?
It just happens.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
You can't make it. It happens.
You know, one thing I have learned, and it's not just about the Eagles, I guess you say in real life, but you know, worthwhile relationships have ups and downs, and you have to be able to learn how to ride the ups and downs. You know, I mean, there's still times when, you know, we drive each other nuts.
Most guys that have been through what we've been through, like, move pianos now or something, you know. We have a grateful list, and we should not forget it. We've been very fortunate, and we have people out there that really love us, you know. And I don't know what else we would do.
And if we were to list just a quarter of the things that they have been through, we'd be here all morning. I can tell you, great band, fantastic band. If you want to see more of that interview, in fact, the whole thing, you can look at it on our website, gm.tv. I most certainly will be.
Now, we've had an extraordinary response from you to our online stress test. Over 21,000 of you have taken the test to see what your stress levels. Again, mine are quite high right now. This morning, we're going to be looking at financial worries, and we've got some advice for you on GMTV today.
Yeah, so let us know your money concerns by emailing us at the website, gm.tv, and we'll do our best, not Cordelia and I, but experts will do their best to answer. Right now, let's catch up on the weather with Claire. Parky again this morning.
It's a bit parky this morning in the southeast. Let's take a look at this. These are Berwick swans. It's a good indicator what our winter's going to be like. They migrate in from Siberia, and they're a couple of weeks early this year. So forget the seaweed. This is the swans we're looking at now. Now, last time they were early was 2 years ago, where it was very chilly indeed. Should we take a look and see what's happening today? Take a look.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Nestle Cereals. Whole grain for the whole family every morning.
Oh, wow. We have a contrast in temperatures today, and the reason why, we've got cold air coming in across the south, hence temperatures are dipping below freezing, and up towards the north it's very mild indeed, so temperatures between around -1 and 12 degrees Celsius this morning. High pressure in charge for the next few days, and what that means, clear skies today. We're seeing more in the way of cloud to the far north, but look at this, clear skies across much of the country, be dazzled by sunshine today, despite the fact there's a little bit of mist and fog around this morning, particularly across eastern areas of England. We're seeing more in the way of clouds across the west and the north of Scotland, where we're seeing the odd spot or two of rain, but generally speaking, as you wake up, you'll be waking up to some bright skies across much of the country this morning. That's how we see Scotland and Northern Ireland, away from the far north and west again, where we could see the odd spot or two of rain. Blue sky all the way across England and Wales, and that's going to continue through the afternoon. I think highest temperature today, like yesterday, probably somewhere like the Moray Firth, where temperatures could reach 15 or even 16 degrees Celsius. The sun appearing across the Northern Isles as well, and we're just hanging on to some cloud across the Hebrides there. Heading further south then, it's a similar situation, high pressure in charge. There's not a lot of cloud about at all, so really enjoy this sunshine because it is all going to change, particularly in the south over the next few days. 11 or 12 Celsius for northern counties of England. It's a chilly start here, not as cold as down towards the south where we're seeing a frost, and the sunshine will help temperatures up to around 12 Celsius, that's 54 Fahrenheit. Down towards the west country then, not too bad at all, a glorious day. Enjoy the sunshine, get out and enjoy the light winds as well, because the winds will be picking up in the south later. For Wales as well as the Isle of Man, it's a similar situation, 14 Celsius the very best across the province of Northern Ireland. And then tomorrow, well, it's a repeat performance across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Again, you're likely to see wall-to-wall sunshine, blue skies, away from the far north and west again, where we could see a little bit of patchy rain. Further south, it's a slightly different story, more in the way of clouds coming in from the continent, bringing in with it a strong wind, particularly across Channel Coast there. So expect more cloud later on in the day, and that leads us into the next few days where we'll continue to see the cloud in the south and some brighter skies in between. Here's your summary. Find out what's in store for the next 5 days on our website, gm.tv.
6:29 now on Tuesday, the 23rd of October 2007.
Yes, you're watching the News Hour on GMTV, and in the next half hour, this is what we've got for you. The NHS seems to be sorting out its money troubles, but a third of trusts are still in the red. What are the hospitals like in those circumstances?
The government's top scientist says there could be a cull of badgers to stop the spread of TB in cattle. But is that the best way forward?
And a little bit later on, we'll be meeting the woman who managed to shed 7 stone thanks to a snappy, happy boyfriend. But first, tragedy struck at a popular holiday resort in the Algarve last night as 3 British holidaymakers and a German tourist drowned. They were apparently trying to rescue children who got into difficulties while swimming. 3 more British people are being treated in hospital near the town of Sagres. Miranda Shunka reports.
This is the picturesque but perilous stretch of coastline where the holidaymakers were swept to their deaths, trying to save a group of children. Among them, the parents of a young brother and sister who are now being comforted. The beach itself is located at Sagres in southwest Portugal and is a popular spot with surfers for its strong currents. It's believed the families were on a half-term break, staying at a nearby golf resort. It's understood the children of the couple are receiving counselling now until relatives arrive. A statement released said everyone at the Vigia Group is deeply saddened by this terrible tragedy. We are, of course, doing all we can to help the children and families of those who have been lost.
Well, Kathy Morris is a British journalist on the Algarve and joins us on the line from there right now. Kathy, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, a very harrowing and distressing accident, in fact, yesterday evening. We do know that the British consul, the newly appointed British consul here in Algarve, Celia Edwards, along with the Algarve Regional Civil Governor, Isilda Gomes, went straight to the scene of the accident and then, in fact, onto the hospital also to be with the children who've now lost their parents. These 2 children still remain in the Barlavento Hospital, which is the main principal state hospital in Western Algarve. It's in the town of Portimao, and the children are under the care of a child psychologist and being treated by doctors at the hospital for shock. We understand that they're not in any danger, but clearly very, very distressed at their ordeal yesterday.
I'm sure there are. Would there normally be lifeguards on this beach at this time of year?
Not at this time of year. The bathing season runs from the 1st of April to the 30th of September inclusive. So for the last 2.5 or 3 weeks here in Algarve, there hasn't been any manned beaches. That means there haven't been any beaches attended by lifeguards. It is raising some questions here in Portugal today through last night, and in fact the early morning news programs are raising the question of, is it fair? Is this safe? Do bathers in fact know that there aren't going to be lifeguards available on hand? Although it is worth pointing out that an immediate search and rescue operation was launched, including a helicopter, maritime police and the Coast Guard.
OK, we'll leave it there for the time being. Kathy, thanks very much indeed. Obviously, if there are any more developments, I'm sure you'll help us out with them. Thank you very much for the time being.
OK, now let's get this morning's other top news stories from Priya.
Thank you, Cordelia. Police in Mallorca are searching for the mother of a 7-year-old girl who's currently fighting for her life after falling from a hotel balcony. Detectives say the woman hasn't been seen since her daughter was found seriously injured. Kate Evans reports.
The girl fell 30 feet from the 5th floor of this hotel, landing on concrete below. She was rushed to hospital where her father is by her bedside, but her mother has apparently disappeared. The family was staying in the resort of Cala de Mallorca in the east of the island. It's thought that they had 2 rooms at the hotel, one shared by the girl and her mother, the other by her father and 2 brothers. Police have launched a major search operation to try to find the girl's mother.
They've had jeeps out, 4x4s, civil protection combing the beaches. They've had the national police have been up in a helicopter combing the coastline as well. I mean, there's some cliffs nearby. The impression I get is more than anything else, they're concerned for her well-being, I think, at this stage.
Doctors treating the injured girl say she remains in a critical condition.
Wildfires burning out of control across California have forced the evacuation of 250,000 people. Thousands of homes are at risk as fierce winds help spread the fires. Well, Carla Romano is in Malibu. Morning, Carla. What's the latest there?
Good morning to you from a very windy Malibu. It resembles more a disaster zone this morning than a glorious, glamorous beach resort. But I tell you what, it's not the only one. 20 raging wildfires sweeping across 7 counties in Southern California. The firefighters are finding it very difficult to contain. We know that over 300,000 people have been evacuated already, and the fire crews are stretched to the absolute limit. We know that the worst affected area is San Diego County. 275,000 people evacuated from there. They're all staying in a big stadium as a shelter overnight, not knowing whether their houses have been burnt to the ground or not. They will know that first thing in the morning. But here in Malibu, people are calling it like an apocalypse. Sorry, I couldn't get that word out. But that's what it's like, and they've been used to this here before. In 93 houses razed to the ground, but it always stuns them every time it happens again. This is the playground of the rich and famous, and we know that about 1,500 people have been evacuated here already, but the fires are fast approaching the homes of Friends star Courtney Cox, her co-star and her best friend Jennifer Aniston. A little bit further up the coast, also threatened are the homes of Cher, Sting and Mel Gibson. We know that Mel Gibson has now evacuated. We've also heard that Kelsey Grammer, who plays Frasier, he has evacuated again. The big problem here, without a shadow of a doubt, are the winds. They're called the Santa Ana winds, and they are blowing these fires out of control. The minute one starts, the minute they stop it, another one starts, because the embers are flying absolutely everywhere. It's a very difficult job. They're bringing in firefighters from all over Northern California to help, and I know that Arnold Schwarzenegger has also said that he'll bring in National Guard troops as well as extra planes and helicopters. Very dire situation here in Southern California, and if those winds don't die down, it is just going to get worse.
OK, thank you, Carla. Smoking permits, compulsory exercise at work and restricting access to alcohol are the only ways to improve the health of the nation. A report from a senior government advisor says the measures are needed to help change Britain's lifestyles. Arouge de Future reports.
We're the fat man of Europe. It's official, with nearly a quarter of Britons obese. We're the most overweight in Europe. And it isn't the only title we've got. We also drink more alcohol, eat less fruit and veg, and are more likely to die from smoking than the average across the European Union. But a radical new plan from a leading social policy expert says the only way to improve our health is to curb our lifestyle. Professor Julian Legrand wants to restrict alcohol by making separate shop queues for those buying booze, make smokers buy annual permits so they can get cigarettes, set aside an hour at work for enforced exercise, give everyone free fruit and veg, and ban salt in processed food. The plans will, of course, lead to accusations of a nanny state. But Professor Legrand says a tough approach is needed to save our children who now risk dying at a younger age than us.
Up to 40% of packaging used by major supermarkets can't be recycled, according to a report out this morning. The local government agency has warned that Britain will fail to hit recycling targets unless supermarkets cut down on the excessive packaging. On our website this morning, find out which cities in Britain have the worst debt, why the traditional lunch hour is a thing of the past, and why grandparents clock up billions of miles a year ferrying their grandchildren around. All that and more on our website, gm.tv. It's now 38 minutes past 6. Here's what's happening where you are.
Thanks very much. Good morning. The main stories here in the northwest. A nurse who was convicted of trying to kill 2 elderly patients so she could free up beds at a hospital in Crewe is to have her case heard at a misconduct hearing today. Barbara Salisbury, seen here in the middle, was a ward sister at Leighton Hospital. She was sent to jail in 2004 for attempted murder. The hearing's being held by the Nursing and Midwifery Council. If found guilty of misconduct, she'll be struck off the nursing register. Now, there are calls this morning for the government to review plans to close the heart unit at Westmoreland General. Thousands of people have already protested against the proposals, which they say would mean some patients facing an ambulance journey of more than 40 minutes to Barrow or Lancaster. Cumbrian MP Tim Farron will lead a debate in Parliament later to discuss the matter.
But the body of evidence is now built up, especially with the decisions just 2 or 3 weeks ago to first close and then reopen Ward 11 at Westmoreland General Hospital, which would have been the first step towards closure of the heart unit. It's now such an obvious shambles that the government really needs to save the NHS's reputation nationally and locally to step in and say, look, enough is enough. An awful decision, badly arrived at. It's time to go back to the drawing board.
Dozens of army medics from the northwest who've been serving in Afghanistan have returned home after a 3-month tour of duty. Members of the 208 Field Hospital have been operating at Camp Bastion in Helmand Province. They've treated casualties from the UK, coalition forces, as well as local Afghans caught up in the conflict. It's the first time the unit has been deployed since the Second World War.
The conditions are very austere. The temperature was very, very hot when we got there. It's about 40, 45 degrees during the day, 25 at night. And it's just relentless, the heat, the dust, and it's all pervasive. And then there's the work. It's very fatiguing, day and night, all the time. And people get very, very tired very, very quickly.
And finally, a Lancashire woman who was nominated for an MBE at just 22 years old will receive her award today. Now preparing to meet the Queen, Ali Joy Howarth was nominated by her former army bosses for her humanitarian work in war-torn Sierra Leone. She set up a charity to help feed and clothe patients at the country's Macbentheth Community Hospital. Well, that's it for now. I'll be back at 7:05. In a moment we'll return to Cordelia and John, but first a look at the region's weather.
Forecast a gorgeous hair day with Pantene Time Renewal, sponsors of GMTV Weather.
Well, lots of sunshine should develop through this morning, but there will be some cloud cover as well over the next few hours. It'll be a sunny afternoon though, with highs reaching up to around 12 Celsius. That's 54 Fahrenheit.
Good morning. Time to have a quick look at the front pages now. Daily Mail, here comes the judge aged 10, a pilot scheme to put young children meting out justice against their peers here in the UK. Daily Mirror, the news at 10 is back. Reports that ITV is bringing back Sir Trevor McDonald, the Bongs, and of course, and finally, we haven't had any word from ITV on whether that's going on. And The Sun, Kate left the kids alone 3 hours a night. That's what the waiters saw on the missing Maddie exclusive, according to The Sun.
Look at The Times. They tell us that Olympic bosses are going to ban all car travel to the Olympic Stadium, forcing people, of course, to go on public transport or walk if they're close enough. Britain's sickliest nation in Europe. Big report in the Daily Telegraph saying childhood obesity rising 50% in a decade. Alcohol-related deaths among women are going to double, and the same report in The Independent, along with what they call pioneering NHS advisor proposing revolutionary cure for our ill son, which we featured in our news bulletin a few moments ago.
Now, it seems that many hospitals are managing their money better, according to a new report out this morning. But does that mean that hospital services are improving? Steve Bundred heads the Audit Commission, which looked at the figures. And while some have improved, he says that some trusts are still performing badly.
In respect of those bodies that are continuing to perform below standard, there are steps being taken to work with them in turnaround teams, to work with them to get the situation back on track. But our view is that that will be very difficult in a number of instances.
Now, to talk about this a bit more, we've got Ron Lilly. Now, you used to run an NHS trust yourself. This sounds like good news, better money management, but we hear time and time again how sort of tighter control of budgets at hospitals can actually damage the way patients are cared for. So is this good or bad?
Well, it's good in as much as there are more trusts and primary care trusts balancing their books this year, so they've done well. But they've been under huge pressure. If you remember, Patricia Hewitt, the previous Secretary of State, pretty much put a job on the line and said the NHS is going to balance this year or die. So they did, and a lot of them, I mean, there are all kinds of ways of balancing the books. But
and it
now,
is back in the black.
Well, yes, it's got a small surplus, actually, which I don't think is a good thing. I think the money should be spent on services and on the surpluses, but that's another issue. But I think here we've got about a third of trusts who are still facing problems. There's a sort of structural debt in the NHS. A lot of it's historic for about a third of trusts who are having real problems. And it does knock on. If a trust is trying to balance its books, the biggest cost centres are either 70% of all NHS money goes on salaries, wages and so on, and the rest of them, of course, on services. So if you've got to balance your books, you've got two primary areas to look at. You either cut services or stop bringing in new ones, or you cut staff. There's not much else you can do, really.
Seems to me that we're looking at a kind of a hardcore of failing hospitals, both in budgetary terms and in terms of patient care. We had a report out just last Friday about league tables for hospitals. There are some at the very bottom in both areas that just don't seem to be budging, don't seem to be moving. So what do you think can be done about that?
I think that's right. Well, a lot of it's management. They're not run very well, and there's a kind of complacency as well in some of these places. And there's another thing that health managers talk about, the health economy. That's the amount of money there is in that particular area. And it's a heresy to say, and the public hate it, but in some areas there are just too many hospitals. You've got a sort of legacy arrangement of old hospitals that really you need to kind of knock them down and start again. So, and it costs a lot of money in overheads to run a hospital, but the public don't like reconfiguration. I mean, we've even seen the chairman of the Labour Party, Hazel Blears, one weekend a few months ago, out on the picket line saying, please don't reconfigure and don't change my local maternity services. So we have an enormous attachment to these old services, and in many cases really the true answer is to close some places and get some modernisation in, but it's really tough. The public on the one hand want new services, but on the other hand they have a huge attachment to the services they have now.
And of course these trust managers paid huge amounts, and you do wonder whether they'd survive in the private sector.
Well, do you know, I do have some sympathy. The average hospital in the average town up and down this country will be the biggest business. I mean, unless you've got a Ford Motor Factory or something. They'll turn over about 100 million. They'll have 5,000 staff, and that puts them, you know, way up in big company territory.
They've
and
got a tough job to do.
and the chief executive, he'll earn 120,000. You know, no share options, no company car. It's a tough job.
I wouldn't mind. OK, thank you very much.
Good to see you. Thanks very much, Dee, for coming in. 40 minutes to 7 is the time. You're watching the News Hour, of course, here on GMTV. These are the headlines you're waking up to this morning. 3 British holidaymakers and a German tourist have drowned trying to rescue children off the coast of the Algarve in Portugal.
Police in Mallorca are searching for the mother of a 7-year-old girl who's fighting for her life after falling from a hotel balcony.
And wildfires in California have forced the evacuation of 250,000 people as fierce winds spread the fires that threaten thousands of homes. Now then, Britain's badgers should be culled to prevent the spread of TB amongst cattle. That's according to a report from the government's chief scientist. But those against the proposed measures say that it's cruel and a pointless waste of money. Let's see the view now of Pauline Kidner. She's the founder of the Secret World Animal Sanctuary down in Somerset and joins us with some badgers behind her. I think you're also once in your life a dairy farmer, I gather, Pauline. So I'm interested to know what's your view on this. Is a cull necessary or not?
Absolutely not. We used to be dairy farmers. We had a TB outbreak ourselves. We're fully aware that badgers are implicated in the problem. But as the 9-year experiment showed us quite categorically, that culling of badgers won't work.
Won't it work? Just tell a city dweller why it won't work.
It's because when you start culling, you cause movement, which then causes fighting out of their territories, and then you get animals that have the disease latent in the body becoming infectious and then spreading it around. There's also the problem that when they did do the experiment, they could only get to 70% of the actual land, so the access was denied to them on almost a third of the land. So actual culling of badgers is extremely difficult. And remember, the sort of areas that they're talking about is the size of Greater London, which is a huge area. And in order for it to work, all those animals would need to be gassed, snared, whatever the government's deciding to do, practically in the first week, which would be impossible.
Yeah, well, I remember, I'm old enough to remember, in fact, doing this story 30 years ago, Pauline, down in the West Country, when they started gassing badgers down there, and they abandoned it because in the end they didn't think the proof against the badger, at that stage anyway, if I remember rightly, they didn't think the proof against the badger was conclusive enough. Having said all that, your colleagues and your friends, I'm sure, down there in the West Country who are farmers will say, hang on a tick, though, Pauline, 30,000 cattle a year have to be killed because of this, and that's a huge economic loss to them and also very unpleasant for the cattle involved. Any measure, surely, any measure that might alleviate that situation is worth trying.
One of the things that came out of the trial is that 80% of the infection is from cattle to cattle. There is many things that still can be done. We've actually introduced pre-testing of cattle when they're moved. There is also a gamma interferon test that they're hoping to bring in. Some farmers are using it, but it's much better than the skin test that's been used over the years. We're expecting TB to go up because we are now catching those cows that have been missed in the testing regime that we've had before. So we're not surprised to see TB going up, and it is capable of being able to control it purely through cattle responsibilities and protocols.
Again, forgive me if this is an impossible question to answer, but I mean, as a city dweller, I just ask myself, you know, why can't they inoculate the cattle? Is there no vaccine available, or is it simply that it's too expensive?
There's no vaccine available. What they need to do is to find a means of being able to vaccinate cattle so that we can tell the difference between a vaccinated animal and an infected animal. Even so, TB is not that much of a problem because obviously it's a disease that when our milk is pasteurised and when meat is cooked, it's not a problem, but it obviously is a financial drain as far as farmers are concerned. But remember, there are many, many more thousand cows killed each year because of mastitis and because of laminitis, which means to do with their feet. What has happened over the years by using artificial insemination, we have bred cattle that no longer has the decent immune system, so they're actually falling foul to many diseases, not just TB.
Fascinating argument. Love to hear from a farmer on this one too at some stage, but thank you very much indeed for your perspective on it, and thanks for letting us into your sanctuary and looking after all those animals, not just badgers. I know you've got all sorts of creatures down there which you care for. Thanks very much indeed for being with us.
Now, how would you feel if your boyfriend suggested you strip down to your undies for a photo to help you lose weight? Horrified? Angry? Well, that's what happened to Natalie Goulding. She weighed 18 stone and couldn't understand how a snap of her flabby belly and wobbly thighs could possibly be a diet aid. But she bravely agreed. Just take a look at what happened. It's incredible. Well, here is the amazing shrinking Natalie, joining us now weighing just 11 stone. Shrunk from a size 24 to a healthy size 12. Fantastic. That is amazing, Natalie. Looking really, really good. How are you feeling?
A bit nervous, but other than that, I'm great, thanks.
Yeah, and well, what do you think when you look at those pictures of yourself sort of shrinking down to what you are now from what you were?
They are quite amazing. From what I were to what I am now, there's such a difference. And I just feel fantastic for it.
Because it's not just the weight that's changed, is it? Your whole life has been transformed, yeah. I'm hearing. So tell me how that's happened.
Well, before I lost weight, I didn't like to go out much. I wasn't comfortable with myself. We didn't have much of a social life. But every stone that came off, I just came out of my shell, basically, and got a bit more of a social life. I just feel great.
We're just looking at this food on the table here. This, believe it or not, was what Natalie used to get through every evening. Is that correct?
I used to eat a lot.
That you know how to spoil yourself, girl, don't you?
Yes.
What did you think when you're looking at it now?
To be honest, that makes me feel sick.
It does?
It really does, yeah.
And the thing I like most about this is that you just lost the weight by simply cutting out junk food and doing a little bit of light exercise. So, you know, you're an inspiration. It's not that difficult. Let's just talk to Andrew for a moment. You are a very brave man, aren't you? Because you were the one who suggested the weight loss in the first place.
Yeah, suggesting it to her the first... what's now saying to go through the idea of like taking the photos, she was like, no way am I doing that. I said, well, if I get taking the photos, you can see the progress of it coming off you. That'll keep you motivated. And she agreed with it. And then as soon as she's seen all the photos going through the stages, she was like, wow, I can see it actually happening, and that's what kept her motivated.
It was going about half a stone a week at one point. Were you surprised as you were taking the photos to see it continue just dropping off?
Yeah, because she was looking like on the photos and she could see like lines disappearing, and she was like, this is amazing.
You must be very proud, actually.
Oh, I'm very proud, yeah.
And let's just talk, because there's going to be people sitting at home thinking, I want to do that. You know, how did you do it specifically? Can you tell people, you know, what steps did you take?
Well, from eating a lot to going to not a lot, it was a big step. But I would eat sensibly, eat small but often, which I found that helped me, because you don't need to eat a really big meal to feel good. I mean, as long as you just fill yourself, you feel all right. And then when you start to feel peckish, just have a little something healthy. Just fills you up and it just keeps you going. So, I mean, it is possible for anyone. And
of course it helps having such a lovely, supportive boyfriend. Well, well done to both of you. It's a really lovely story. I'm very pleased to hear it all. And by the way, if you want to read more about it, here it is. It's in this week's Closer. There you go.
That's just about your lot from the news hour. Kate and Ben here shortly with GMTV Today.
They'll have top tips on dealing with financial stress, and we'll be meeting a man who collects buses.
But right now, the weather with Claire.